So I started with the streaming service Paramount Plus. By the end of 2022, I was called in as if I wanted to research how can we bring AI for the work environment. So, and what I can tell is AI is a very handy tool, but that it doesn't do everything for you. I'm going to explain why. But my productivity in terms of percentage raised in 40 to 50%.
I guess let's just jump into it. I think I'm actually really looking forward to this one because, I mean, normally only one side of our marketplace is interested in what the guests have to say, but I'm pretty sure both the engineering managers and engineering community in the US and also in Latin America are going to be interested with your story and what you have to say. So it'd be great to hear. Could you run us through your career where you've gone from start up until now, just so that people have a bit of context about your overall move?
Thanks for having me here. My name is Bruno. I'm currently a senior software engineer at ViacomCBS, which is a parent company for Paramount Plus, CBS, MTV, Pluto TV. I started college back in 2004 and I took some internships along the way. After graduation, I had my first full-time dev experience in a mining company, which I stayed there for a couple of years. And after that, I moved to work on different industries like entertainment, transportation, and even startups, creating innovative products on the internet like social media games and stuff like that. Up until a point that I decided to move to the United States in 2016. I stayed here as a student for about a year. And then after that, I could get my work permit and a green card as on one call. So I started my first experience in United States back in 2017 in a startup, which at time was a different industry or company size that I was accustomed to since I've been working on mostly on big corporations. But then a year later, Disney found me in LinkedIn. They were very professional, very welcoming, made it myself feel easy at the process. I started with them in 2017 and I stayed there for 4 nice years before I joined ViacomCBS, which both companies, process wise and company size, stuff like that, the process that they have for the engineering team for the software development are pretty similar. So the transition from Disney to Viacom was very easy because, like I said, almost the same thing. Wasn't that much change for me. But of course, they're big leading on entertainment in the United States. So it's very different from a startup point of view. So you have to be way more knowledge about what is the audience and especially the size of the audience for these companies on your day-by-day activities. You're in the number of millions and millions requests per day. That's very different from when you used to a startup company.
Talk to me a little bit about the transition from Brazil up to the States. How did you organize that?
Well, let me give some context why I ended up coming to the United States. Since I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of US movies and I always had a fall for architecture as well. It's different. Brazil and Europe has similar culture and architecture. So you see a lot more cement all over on these places and you see green everywhere. So that kind of how I was watching as a kid. Oh, that's beautiful, you know? And then working with IT and especially software development, US is where everything was starting to come to us. We had the time that Japan was doing that, but mostly towards game. And then you learn like new languages, everything is in English and not rural language. I'm talking about programming languages. And I started like getting, hey, how is to work on software development in the United States, you know? And I started seeing, especially the compensation was way higher. The possibility you also learn language now is a communication skill. and maybe going to United States, spend like 5 years or so, learn new language and get new experience. Then I can come back to Brazil with baggage and maybe get better opportunities here. And here, what I mentioned was back in Brazil. I tried to apply for some positions, but I get to know that it's not that easy to get a job if you don't have work permission, right? So you basically have to request visa sponsorship, and the H1 visa are not that simple. So the first time that I set my foot here in United States was 2000. And since I didn't get any company wanting to sponsor the visa, I decided to came here to continue my language studies. So I got the M1 visa, I guess. So you can study in the United States. And I stayed here for a year. And during this time, I got to know a person, right, an American. And then we start this relationship, and I end up marrying this person, which granted me the green card and work permission. So with that,
So then now you're established as a software engineer in the States. And so you've had a long period in the States, a long period in Brazil. What do you find is the biggest difference between working in the States versus working outside the US?
even though the Brazilian culture was more like similar to Europe, but we have a lot in common with the United States as well, because like I said, we consume a lot of US.
They're very similar cultures.
So for me, and since programming is everything in English, we take a lot of webcasts and training in English. So that was not very impactful. Like, take the language barrier aside. Once you improve on that and start communicating well, that was just fine for me, at least. And I saw more positives than negatives, which was in the positive side. The companies that I worked for was very welcoming. I had the patience to understand on the communication side that I was improving, I was willing to. And so in the other side, they were expecting that I do my part and do my job. And so I focused on that. And the first job that I got here as a developer was Daniel 2016 or 17. And it was kind of a startup. People there were so nice, and they were very welcoming. And I didn't have any problems, not at all.
Yeah, no, the great welcoming culture. My favorite response to that question when I say what's different between the States and Brazil is that the cars in the States now drive themselves. So, tech's moving quickly. I'd love to talk a little bit about remote work practices. We're an entirely remote company, but we made the change in COVID, like a lot of people. I know you've got a lot of experience working remote. What are work practices that you use or techniques that you use to make working remote effective? And
I learned this strategy a long time ago, back in 2011, but that's a concentration focus strategy they call the tomato technique. Remember those little tomato timers that you squeeze this like tick, 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 tick. People sometimes use that for like cooking or something like that. This tomato is the website explaining the technique or the strategy, saying we as a human, we have a top concentration point and that maxing to 25 minutes, right? So even though some people can extend that more, have more focus for more time, but in average, our peak out focus, it lasts for 25 minutes. So I used to set my watch discounted to 25 minutes and start working. And then I stop to 5 minutes so I can take a coffee, drink some water, stuff like that, and then come back and do the same thing. That helped me a lot, especially because I have ADHD. If I'm in a place that has a lot of distraction, like in the office, I used to sit on my desk and people walking all over. So I got easily distracted. So for me, working from home is kind of a good thing because I don't have any distractions here. I have my family, but now with a little one at home, sometimes, crying in the background, but I put my headphones and start listening to music. So it's kind of block the outside noise.
yeah.
Well, for me, it was very easy. Like I said, the office has many distractions, people talking all over your background.
And what's the best remote team that you've worked with, and why do you think it worked so well remote? And that the context of the question is, I think a lot of people tried to translate their management style from in-person over to remote. And normally there's some changes you need to make or some adjustments you need to make the team still work well together. So can you think of any team you worked with that did work well remote, and why that was?
I started working remote even before the COVID. I worked at Disney for July 2017. Right away, Disney has that policy, so you can work from home 2 or 3 days a week, and then at least 2 days in the office. So that was new for me. One thing I missed from the work in the office, you see people face to face, right? In
Mhm.
person. Let's say you have a challenge that you're facing and you want to gather people right away. If you're working remote, you have to rely on Slack and people responding to you. But in the office, you call that person
Mhm.
or sometimes side by side, like two guys on your left and right. Hey guys, can you help me? They get up and help you right away. That's the biggest point that I miss from the office. But the advantage compensate that. The fact that I don't
Yeah.
have to commute, I can sometimes it's like 5 p.m. or 6 and but I want to extend and work more on the problem. So I go like
Yeah.
7, 8 p.m. Right. So it's kind of you lose and gain some way.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about AI. And I think it comes up because one of the questions I am most commonly asked is by young people saying, hey, I'm not sure if it's even worth learning to code now because AI will do it all in the future. How would you respond to a young person asking you that question?
That's complicated, right? Because talking about AI, we are at the crawl stage, right? We are at the phase on AI that people now have access to it. Before it was
Right.
just researchers. Now people has access to it and start creating things, but still we're in the crawl stage. Soon we're gonna start walking, and at the point things go exponential. So that's hard to predict what's gonna happen. I use AI after I left Disney. I left Disney in 2021 and start with Paramount Plus and CBS. So I start with the streaming service Paramount Plus. By the end of 2022, I was called and asked if I wanted to research how can we bring AI for the work environment. So seeing some ways that could help us improve our productivity. And that's what I did. I focused on researching that. And by the time GitHub Copilot was in the early stages, but by the end of 2022, they released it to the public. Start release a little bit before as a beta version. So I signed up myself for a beta tester and it was just good. And
Mhm.
by the time I brought that to the company and they have concerns about, hey, how we can protect our company data and that not being
Mhm.
exposed with the use of AI. And with that, I talked to some guys in GitHub. We could even schedule a meeting with the company leadership and then GitHub guys so they could explain how they were caring about not leaking data and
Mhm.
how the database for your queries, your prompting
Mhm.
activity was like protect. So
Mhm.
after that, in some new rounds of meetings, they adopted and make it official. So everyone in development area and Paramount could request to use it. And what I can tell is AI is a very handy tool, but that it doesn't do everything for you, right? And I'm going to explain why. But my productivity in terms of percentage raised in 40 to 50%. I mean, it is just that good.
40, 50% increased productivity.
Yes. But I researched some other tools too, and there's also AI option for terminal. So you program use the terminal all the time, and you can also use AI in the terminal, which is very helpful because AI was not my biggest strength. Now with AI, you're not just getting results instead of you go on Stack Overflow, do a question or see who else has something that you need. Now you have it right away, right? And making prompting, questions and seeing the results, you learn as well. So back to GitHub Copilot, I have my style of programming, but then, hey, I need a method to calculate some number some way. Usually you have something in mind how you do that. And then once the AI gives you the response, oh, I wouldn't go that route. And then, oh, I see what they did here. Yeah, that's way better and faster. Now you learn from that result, right?
Mhm.
Well, what happened most of the time, that there's a tricky thing here, but I'm gonna explain that. What happened most of the time, you do a prompt and you receive an answer and you have to make adjustments, which is expected, right? AI was trained based on what's out there, but usually what it's doing is what the goals are, right? So you have your product owner that need a specific feature in your app and that has details. Of course, the AI, you can help it like providing it more details when you prompting. That would help a lot. The AI understand what you need. Or you can do like the first answer gonna give you now, okay, now can you improve that, adding this, and that, and it gives you another answer. Okay, keep going. But what I said is tricky is AI could even give you a more deep solution. But because AI has a cost to process your question and give you an answer, there is a approach for the minimal effort. The AI is going to try to provide you with the minimal effort first. Okay.
Yeah.
And that would save them, the company that's providing that service for you will save them computing costs like energy, processing, etc. But once you understand those things, you start like getting experience in prompting, that becomes way, way better. But I would say the future of web development or any development is to use AI. Those who like resist or don't go after and start learning that is going to be left behind on this thing.
But do you think people are still going to need to have a deep technical understanding to be able to use that AI effectively?
Yes. I mean, if you don't have a lot of background in programming, won't help you much. You're going to trust a lot in the AI. Okay, that's it that I need, or because you don't know. Uh, okay, I could improve that once you have programming
Yeah.
background, you see the responses. Okay, that's not exactly what I need. I can improve here, or that's totally not what I need.
Yeah.
So if you don't have it, you're not going that far.
No, it's actually, it's an excellent point. Bruno, I think those are what I wanted to run through today, but I love that view of AI. I think you're right. Everyone will need a level of technical knowledge. It's somewhat similar to no code tools in the past, in that people said, with no code, you won't need to learn how to code. It's like, sure, but then as soon as you need to do something a little bit more complex, you do need to code immediately. And there'll be a different but somewhat similar dynamic with AI as well. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. If you search for Bruno Leite, you're gonna find my contact information there, my page at LinkedIn. So you can always send a message. I reply it. So I'm always looking stuff there. And what I would say to people out there, especially those who want to maybe change to another location, to a different country. First things first, based on this conversation, learn the language for where you're going. If you go to Germany, learn German. If you go to France, learn French. If you go to the United States, learn English. That's the first gate
Yeah.
you have to open. And besides that, you should focus on your career and you want to get there. Try to spend time getting more knowledge. Now we have a lot of different courses out there, especially free on YouTube. If you look on YouTube, you can find even a guy teaching how to build an AI service from scratch. You couldn't find that back when I started in 2004. Was even a floppy disk at the time. Now you guys have a lot more tools out there to help you, um, improve your career in a very short time period.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you. Have a nice day.